Hi, we are Team 5 and our project is called Human Agent Interaction Game. My name is Yusuf. There was already an existing system that our sponsor had made, but it had some shortcomings. It was a standalone mobile and Java app, and it didn't have an integrated database, and it was restricted to one platform. And it didn't also have a standalone agent and report generating functionality. So what we have done is we've made a web version of the whole game, and since it's on the web, it's not restricted to one platform. And what we've used is the main stack, Mongo, Express, and Angular and Node. We've also made this app mobile compatible. And apart from the existing functionalities, we have added an admin module which makes it easier for the admin user to run the game. So the game itself is an experiment that tries to measure trust between a human and an agent. User data is recorded and stored in the database for analysis. We also had a machine learning requirement which was later scrapped by the sponsor itself. And now each person will describe the components they've made. And this page is the homepage of our app, and it's a disclaimer. You just have to click agree and move to the next page. And now Aditya will demonstrate the demographic questionnaire.
Thanks, Yusuf. So this is the second stage of the game, that is demographics questionnaire. It is required for understanding the user's demographic information such as age, gender, and level of education, and also his or her experience with computers and video games. So the questionnaire has a few questions that are marked with red asterisk. These are the questions that are mandatory to answer. I will just go ahead and answer some of them. Similarly, you can answer all the other questions. I have pre-answered all of them. Also, we have added validation to make sure that the user has answered all the mandatory questions. So if I try to submit here, I get an error message saying that this question marked in red is not answered by me. So I will just go ahead and answer it and click submit. So after clicking submit, my responses are saved to the database and I am redirected to the tutorial page.
Thanks, Aditya. I'm Syed Zafar Shah. I'll be explaining the tutorial and the practice page of the game. So basically this is a hospital management game wherein the goal is to save as many patients as possible. You have the patients that come in and you have a certain set of resources with you, and the goal is to allocate resources and patients to a given room. So there are two types of patients, patient A and B. A requires a doctor and a nurse, B requires a surgeon and a nurse. So one by one you allocate patients and then you allocate resources to the room. So now this is a tutorial that's built up on Intro.js JavaScript library that explains each and every aspect of the game. In the first step, you can see the time left to finish the game. The second step gives you the patient's view. So if the patient count is between 0 to 2, then the circles are marked green, and if it's between 2 to 4, the circles are marked yellow, and if it's between 4 and 6, the circles are marked red. And these are the panels to allocate patients, to assign patients and resources to the room, and also share resources with the agent in the neighboring hospital. So in the game, as you allocate resources, you'll be sharing the resources with the agent in the neighboring hospital. You allocate resources to him and he shares the resources with you, and you take the resources from him. And the next step shows you the patient's view in the neighboring hospital. And this here the rooms, red means that it's not ready to be assigned, green means that you can assign resources or patients to the room. Here you can see the score and the resource count, and here you can see of the neighboring hospital. And yeah, you're done with the game. So this is the practice mode. You are entering the practice mode of 2 minutes, and here you actually play the game. You assign a patient, you assign a doctor, a nurse to patient A, and yes, the time has started, and now patient B has come. So I'm assigning patient B in another room. Patient B requires a nurse and a surgeon. So the timer for patient B has started. So the timer keeps on starting.
Thanks, Sayed. So I'm Tarun and I'll be explaining the actual game and the interaction between the agent and the player and also the different versions of the game. So you are greeted with this alert screen where the user is notified of the goal of the game. So the actual game is similar to the practice game. So here you have the different sections where patients are coming in. So you can go ahead and assign patients, and all available rooms are marked in green. So you can assign a patient, and patient A requires a doctor and a nurse. So you can go ahead and assign doctors and nurses. So the room will give you hints on what is needed, like a nurse is needed at this point. So in version 1 of the game, the agent shares resources to you, and you can there's no way of accepting or denying resources. So if an agent has shared a nurse, so your nurse count will increase by 1. So let's go ahead and assign a nurse. So once a doctor and nurse has been assigned to a room and the patient requirements has been met, so the patient is being treated now. So the time left is 20 seconds. So in between, the agent will share resources. So you can go ahead and close this notification. So your resource count will be updated based on the agent sharing and the allocation. So you can also share resources to the agent. So here the patient has been treated, so you can reclaim your resources from the room that you were allocated. So now let's go ahead and share some resources to the patient. So you click the share resource button and you can share a doctor. And in this version of the game, the resources are directly shared to the agent. So if you notice here, we have 4 nurses. And if you click on share nurse, this is updated to 3 because we have transferred one of our nurses to the neighboring hospital. So, and the patients will be coming in the incoming queue, and this is based on a timer based on the pace of the game, and this has been set in the configuration file. And so here you can see your score updated. So the number of patients that you treat is the number of scores that you'll get. So we have a lot of unhappy patients in the queue. So let's assign a couple more. So in the other version of the game, so let's go check out the other version of the game. So it is given as a query parameter in the URL. So now I'm using version 2 of the game. So when you play version 2 of the game, what happens is like the agent has the ability to accept or deny your resources. So it's not just a one-way street now. So if you assign a doctor, if you share a doctor, so the doctor has been accepted by the neighboring hospital. Let's say you share a nurse and has been denied by the hospital. So similarly, when an agent is sharing some resources with you, you will also have the option to either accept or deny resources. So here you see the notification that we don't have enough doctors to satisfy the requirement. So that's why we're getting an insufficient number of doctors. So as you can see in the version 2 of the game, so the agent has shared a surgeon. So you can either accept or deny the request. So here you see the available resources. So if I go ahead and accept the surgeon, my 2 will become 3. So yeah, my available resources has been updated. So similarly, so this is the only difference between the version 1 and version 2 of the game. So now you can go ahead and deny a resource, and the resource has not been accepted on this side. So these are the 2 versions of the game that was asked to be implemented by the sponsor. So in this, we mainly study all the moves that are made by the player are recorded, and his user statistics information is stored in a CS in the database, and is later exported when the administrator wants the logs. So we'll just run down the clock and move on to after the game ends, we'll be greeted with the post-game questionnaire, and Aditya will explain the post-game questionnaire. Thank you.
Thanks, Tarun. This is the next stage of the game, the trust and task questionnaires. The trust questionnaire is important because it asks questions that are related to the player's tendency to trust others. The responses to these questions are important for researchers to determine the level of trust shared between the player and the agent. So, and the responses are categorized in 6 levels of accuracy, as you can see here. I have pre-filled the questionnaire because it's too long. There are 20 odd questions here. In the task questionnaire, we ask questions pertaining to the player's understanding of the game and the player's interaction with the game. The questions, the responses to these questions are again categorized in 6 categories of agreement, such as strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, etc. I will just go ahead and fill this questionnaire. Also, all the questions in the trust questionnaire and the task questionnaire are mandatory, and the player cannot skip any of these questions. If I go ahead and also we have added the validation to check that the player has answered all the questions in the trust and task questionnaires. And as we saw in the demographics questionnaire, if the player hasn't answered any question, then that question will be marked red. So after clicking submit, the responses will be saved to the database, and the player will be redirected to the thank you page. Now from here, the player can after clicking this button, player can go back to the home website, that is the website of the Adapt Lab. Also, if I just refresh, if I just try to play this game again by going to the base URL, I will still be redirected to the thank you page since I have already played the game once. That's the functionality we have implemented using cookies. So as you can see, after clicking the back to the studies button, I am redirected to the Adapt Engineering page. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. Hi, my name is Tanmay Patil, and I'll show you the authentication part of this application. So this is the login screen. Here you have to enter a username, which is your email address, your ASU email address. So let's start with entering a wrong email address. Let's see what happens. So as you can see, there is an error message which says that sorry, there is no admin user with the username you provided. To add an admin user, later on we'll see manage admins functionality. So this is a valid username. So we are using Google's OAuth library. So when you enter your email address, you will be asked by Google to sign into your account. You have to allow access to the application, and then you will be logged in, and as you can see above here, you will see all the admin only functionality. Let's take a look at the reporting and exports functionality as well. So there are 2 types of reports. There is a game report and there is an admin report. First, let's take a look at the game report. You have to select a date range between which you want to export the data for the game report. You can see the message here that your job has been queued. So we have implemented a background worker infrastructure which works in the background to generate your report. You can see your export here in this CSV exports tab. So this is the export which I just generated. It was successful, and let's see what the CSV was downloaded. So here is all the moves made by the end user while playing the game. This is the unique user ID assigned to it. And in the another sheet you can see the responses to the pre-game and post-game questionnaire against the same user ID. Going back to the application, you can also export the admin log. The admin log, basically whatever all the admins does is collected, and you can see the data here. Again, you can see the type of the export. You can see the time when the admin made the action, what the action was, and who did that. So at 4/4/2017, admin logged in, and it was T Gomudur at asu.edu. So that's it from my side.
Hi, I'm Yusuf, and I'll be explaining the admin section of the game. This is a new game screen where the admin can create a new game configuration. This is the game settings. You can have different type of agent cooperation and patient help time, and different game speeds, etc. Once you submit a particular game configuration, you'll be sent to the admin panel, which has all the pre-existing game configurations. One of these is active and is highlighted by the green color. You can deactivate or delete a configuration. No configuration can be active at a time, and this is when the game will not be running. But if you activate a configuration, only one can be active. And this is the manage admin screen. You can create and delete admin users, and this also is validated. So if you enter a wrong email address or a non-ASU email address, you won't be sent through. So another thing, this view is only accessible to the super admin. We have two admin roles, a normal admin and a super admin, and only the super admin is allowed to create and delete admin users. Now Tarun will explain stress test and browser compatibility.
Thanks, Yusuf. Now we'll go over some of the testing that we did for our web application. This being a web application, we did a browser compatibility test and also a stress test. So in the browser compatibility test, so these are the different versions of the browser that we are supporting, both in desktop and mobile. And for the stress test, we wrote a script to check the number of requests that we can satisfy at a time. So the root URL supports 8,300 concurrent requests, and the API URL supports around 6,200 concurrent requests.
And finally, this is us at the Innovation Showcase. Thank you.